Hello guys and welcome back to Learning with Isha. In this plant growth and development series, we have already started looking at various plant hormones. We have already spoken about the first plant growth promoter in detail, that is auxin. Today is just a continuation and we start talking about the second plant growth promoter, that is gibberellic acid. So gibberellic acid, commonly known as gibberellins, how were they discovered? Well, they were discovered in 1926 by a Japanese plant pathologist by the name of Kurosawa. So, what he observed while working in the rice fields was that there were rice seedlings. Rice ki jo seedlings thi, they were infected by a fungus. The name of that fungus was Gibberella fujikuroi. So, important factors is that this is a fungus that was infecting what? This was infecting rice seedlings. Okay, so what was the observation? He observed that the rice seedlings affected by this fungus grew abnormally in height to a limit of foolishness, and that is why he called this the foolish seedling disease or the Bakane disease. Bakane is the Japanese for the word foolish seedling. So, why is it foolish? Well, if a plant grows to an abnormal height, eventually it wouldn't be able to maintain its growth and die. So, that is why it is known as the foolish seedling disease of rice. And this formed the basis for the discovery of one such substance that was produced by this fungus. Now, what he thought was that there was this fungus and it was producing a substance, and this substance was causing the plant to gain this abnormal height. This proposition was proved by two scientists, Yabuta and Sumiki. What they did was, from the culture filtrate of this fungus, they finally isolated this substance and named it gibberellic acid. In fact, 6 such gibberellins were isolated by them. The properties of gibberellins now. First of all, they fall in the category of plant growth promoters. So they have growth promoting activities. Okay. So what are they derived from? They are chemically derived from, as we've already discussed, a group of compounds that are known as terpenes. These terpenes are responsible for all the aromas that we feel in a plant. Now, what is the nature? Well, they are of an acidic nature. Gibberellic acid. So they are acidic. Now, how do we name the gibberellins? Well, initially I've told you that the scientists discovered about 6 gibberellins from the culture filtrate. Eventually, more than 100 different gibberellins were discovered from plant and fungal sources. So they are named in order of their discovery as GA1, GA2, GA3 and so on. So there are 100 different types and they would each be given a number. Now, what is the most extensively studied gibberellin? That is GA3. GA3 is the most widely studied form of gibberellin. Now, let's quickly move on and look at what functions gibberellins perform in the plant body. The first very important function of gibberellin is that it leads to an increase in the height of the stem. So basically what gibberellins do is that they induce cell division and cell elongation. So the cell is not only going to divide and increase in number, but also it is going to elongate in length. If a cell elongates in length, eventually the length of your stem will also increase. Increase in the length of the axis. It is observed in the case of the grape stalks. So in the grape, we observe that there's a stalk and over which your fruits are attached. Now, if the stalk is of a little, if the length is a little more, what could be the advantage? The number of grapes on one stalk would increase. So it would increase the market value of your grapefruit. Now, the second function is it leads to the elongation and shape improvement of the fruit. Let's say you have an apple. Not only your apple will be longer and better formed, but also it would be beautifully shaped. Now, delayed senescence. What it does is, like there's a plant, let's say lychee. Lychee has a very short period in which it can stay on the tree. Therefore, your market period of lychee is available only for a month or so. By spraying gibberellins, what we can do is we can allow the fruit to remain on the tree for a longer period. So therefore, it can be shipped and marketed for a longer period. So it increases the commercial value of your fruit. It also induces parthenocarpy. In the case of auxins, we have already studied parthenocarpy is the phenomena where you get seedless fruits. Fruit होगा उसमें seed नहीं होगा. So this again increases the commercial value. Then why do we need gibberellins? Well, there are some cases where auxins have been found ineffective in inducing parthenocarpy, like in the case of pome fruit or let's say stone fruit. In these fruits, auxins was not successful. But when we sprayed gibberellins, we were able to obtain parthenocarpic fruits, as in seedless fruits. Now let's look at another function. One of the most important functions of gibberellins is in the bolting and flowering process. To understand this, let's first understand an important term known as rosette habit forming plants. So what are these plants? These plants के सबसे beautiful example is cabbage and beetroot. So what happens in cabbage is that there is a small axis around which a lot of broad leaves are attached in the cabbage. That is what we observe. This phenomena is known as the rosette habit. When around a small axis only you will find many leaves attached. So what is special about these plants? When these plants get appropriate conditions of light and cold conditions like light and temperature, just before their flowering, they go an abnormal increase in the length of this axis. This axis just before flowering can increase up to 5 or 6 times. It can become 5 or 6 times of its original length. And this eventually is going to promote the flowering process. But why do we need gibberellins then? This process requires very specific conditions of temperature and sunlight, in the absence of which the elongation of this axis is not going to happen. When I'm going to spray gibberellins on the plant, these conditions are reduced. So even if let's say I don't get enough sunlight or if I don't get the appropriate temperature, yet the axis length is going to increase and the plant is going to flower. So let me just tell you what bolting is. As we have already seen, bolting is internode elongation just prior to flowering, observed in those plants that have a rosette habit like cabbage and beetroot. So these were the functions of gibberellin. We have seen that it is very commercially important in plants like cabbage or wherever we need to increase the length of the stem, like we saw in the case of grape. Another such example could be, let's say, sugarcane. In sugarcane, most of the sugar is stored in the stem. So if the length of the stem increases, definitely my sugar yield is also going to increase. Another commercial example, advantage of gibberellin was in the case of those plants that have a short lifespan. So we can increase their market period by spraying gibberellins. Gibberellins also perform many other functions, like they help in breaking seed dormancy and help in the process of seed germination. Also, apical dominance was observed due to the presence of this apical bud. This we have already discussed in the video on auxins. So this gibberellin is also going to help overcome the phenomena of apical dominance. So the next video is going to talk about the next plant growth promoter, that is cytokinins. Do check out the video on auxins and plant growth hormones before moving on to that video. Thanks for watching and do consider subscribing to my channel.